Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to take a look at Cramer's rule, but this time for three variables in a system of equations. So let's go ahead and get started. So here is our system of equations. And if I were to write this in a matrix, you would get the exact same thing. So you would have 3 here, 8, 2, and -5. 2, 5, -3, and 0, 1, 2, -2, and -1. Oops, excuse me, I don't need the equal sign there. Bad habit. -1. So this is my system of equation. So essentially the top row is my first equation. That's all it is. Except we remove the variables because the variables are basically going to be the columns on top. So let me just go ahead and do this. So these are all my x, all my y's, these are all my z's here, and this is my constant on the other side. That's what's happening. And so what we do here is that we have to find the determinant when we're using the x, y, and z, and then to find the determinants of the different of x and y and z when we expand on the minors, we swap in the constant. That doesn't make a lot of sense when I talk about it theoretically, but I'm going to show you in a moment. And so remember that when we're solving a system of equations, we're trying to find out where these three different linear equations, where they intersect at if we were like to actually graph them. And so that's what we're going to primarily focus on here. So why don't we move to the next slide and we're going to start pulling this apart as necessary. So here we go. I'm just going to rewrite what was on the previous screen so that we can refer to it as we go through this experience here. So 3, 8, 2, -5. So this is basically 3x plus 8y plus 2z equals -5. And then we have 2, 5, -3, 0. And then we have 1, 2, -2, -1, like so. Now, to find the first determinant, or the determinant of when you have all the x, y's, and z's together, if you will. I'm not quite sure what else to call that, but they call it the determinant D. So to find that, what we do is we take the first 3 columns, and we don't deal with the constant yet. You're always dealing with 3 columns at a time, and what happens is that you swap out something. And again, I don't want to get too theoretical. I'd rather just show you so that it makes a little bit more sense here. So to find the determinant D, we take these first 3 columns. And so D essentially equals the following. You have inside your matrix 3, 8, 3, 8, 2, and then you have 2, 5, -3, and then you have 1, 2, -2, like so. This is our matrix. All right, now what we do here is that we want to expand on the minors, and so we're always going to use the first column. Yeah, there are other combinations that can be done, but let's just keep life simple. And so if we want to expand on the minors, what we do here is that we take the first column and we just go down by each number in the first column. And so what happens is that when I want to do it for 3, all the numbers that intersect with 3 are removed, and then I take what's left over here to expand on the minor. That's how it works. Okay, and now, but also when we do this, you have to keep in mind that we're going to take the minor and then we cross multiply, and that goes inside a parentheses, and then we got to add and subtract things together. Now, again, without doing a lot of talking, let's do it and see what happens. I think that'll be much more beneficial. So we're going to start with 3. You kind of already saw this. And so I put the 3 on the outside. The 3 is going to be positive. So what happens here is that there's also a rule for what the numbers are. The first one is positive, then negative, then positive. Just trust me for a second. That'll make sense in a minute. So we have 3 here. And so inside this particular minor, we have 5, -3, 2. Whoa. Sorry, I forgot to do something here. There we go. So positive minus positive, and then 3 here. And then we're going to have 5, -3, 2, -2. Okay. Now the next one is going to be -2, because remember, we're going by this guy right here. So -2, this is going to be -2. So we're going to take out this and take out this. And you can see we're going to have 8, 2, 2, -2. All right. So 8, 2, 2, negative 2. And then the last one is going to be right here, the 1. And so you can see when we cross out the stuff that intersects with that, we're left with 8, 2, 5, negative 3. 8, 2, 5, negative 3. Now, we do some cross multiplying here. So, 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. So let me go ahead and go up here. 3. Got to make this kind of small here. Minus 10. And then we have 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. So minus negative 6. You always subtract when you're inside, like so. Got to make this really small or I won't make it. Minus 2. Okay, so 8 times negative 2 is going to be negative 16, excuse me. Negative 16. And then we have 2 times 2, right? 2 times 2. Yes, that's correct. So it's going to be minus 4. Okay. Almost going to make it here. And then the last one's going to be plus 1. And inside the plus 1, we're going to 8 times negative 3 is going to be minus 24. And then minus 10. Even though it's positive, you always subtract inside the parentheses. That's kind of the rule for this. So let's be very, very careful when we do this because the order of operation can confuse you even if you're experienced. So negative 10 minus negative 6. Well, that's going to be negative 10 plus 6. And that's still going to be negative 4. So we're going to have 3 times negative 4, which comes out to be 12. Let me do this in a different color. Make things a little bit clearer here. So 12. All right. And so now we have negative 16 minus 4. That's going to be negative 20. Negative 20 times minus 2 is going to be, it's going to be positive 40. So 3 times, yeah, this is going to be a negative. I made that mistake again. Positive 40. So the first one was 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Negative 20 times negative 2 is positive 40. And then plus, what do we have here at the end? Negative 24 minus 10 is negative 34 times positive 1 is still negative 34. That's what we have here. So negative 12 plus 40 is going to be positive 28. If you can, hope you can follow my thought here. So this is going to be positive 28. I simplified this up here. Positive, oh man, positive minus 34, and you can see that we get the final answer of negative 6. So our determinant for D right now, the D determinant is negative 6. We're going to use it as the denominator when we go through solving the rest of our systems here, the rest of the system. Now let's do it for D of X. All right, this is a very slow process, but when you finish it, it's very rewarding. So for D of X, what happens here is, let me go back here. We're going to swap out the X values and we're going to put the K value here. And we're still going to have the 3 columns. That's how it works out. So negative 5, 0, negative 1 for our D of X. Let's see here. And then 8, 5, and 2. And then 2, negative 3, negative 2. So let me just make sure this is clear. You can see that the column Y and column Z are the same. And like I just mentioned before, we took the constants and we put them in place of the X. That's how we find the determinant of X, and then we're going to expand on that. Expand the minors is what they like to say. So having done that, if we go through this process, we get the following. D of X equals negative 5, and then inside here we got 5, 2, negative 3, negative 2, and then we got minus 0. This is from right here. This is good because when you multiply something by 0, it just becomes 0. So, but inside, just to be complete here, we got 8, 2, 2, and negative 2. Remember, when I do this, I cross out this, and I'm left, the numbers that are not crossed out are the ones that go inside the actual minor, if you will. That's what's happening there. Whoops, 2. Okay, and then last but not least, we're using -1 here. So it's positive, positive, negative, positive, positive, negative, positive. So positive, negative, positive. So it's supposed to be positive, but we got a -1 here, so that's going to win the battle. But we have 8. Oh my. We have 8, 5, 2, -3. All right, so we do all our cross multiplying. I've discussed that before. So these guys get cross multiplied right here, but we don't care about that one. We cross multiply right here. And so this is what you end up getting. Negative, oh, that's probably too dark. Let me make something a little bit lighter for you. -5 has the following. -10, because 5 times -2 is -10. Minus, and then again we're going to have -6 inside again. Make that big. Oh, too big. And then we have, you guys know that when you ever multiply by 0, it just comes out to 0. So I'm going to save time by just skipping that. And so then we have plus negative. I'm just trying to be consistent when I do that. -1 inside here is going to be 8 times -3 is going to be -24 minus 10. Okay, so we've seen this before. -10 minus -6 is going to be -4. -4 times -5 is going to be +20. Plus, now this is where it gets kind of tricky. -24 minus -10 is going to be -34. Then you multiply that by -1. And so it becomes +34. So we had the 34 here. Remember, the 0 was gone, so I'm just skipping that, and we get 54. So what's happening here is that our d of x, d sub x, if you will, is 54. Okay, let's move on. To d of y. See if we d sub y. Let me see if I can make this a little bit better for you. D sub y. And so again, we're going through the same process. The x column is back to normal again, but this time we swap out the y's for the constant. So now the middle column is -5, 0, -1. And then the column left over, the z column, is going to be the same, 2, -3, -2, like so. Nothing new there. And so then we end up getting this. I want to move a little bit faster here. This is getting kind of long. 3, 0, -1, -3, -2. Okay, -2. So this is the column right here. And so then we have -5, 2, -1, -2. Oops, yeah. And then after that we got +1. Again, this is this guy right here, +1. And so in this one we have -5, 0, 2, -3. All right. And so when we expand this out, make it a little bit clearer here, we get 3, 0, -3. Okay. Because 0 times -2 is 0, -3 times -3 is +3, but remember, it's always subtract there. That's just the rule. -2, let's see here. We got 10 minus -2, like so. Okay, that's what's happening there. 10 minus -2. So, -5 times -2 is 10. -2 times 2 is -2, so we subtract it. Plus, then we got 1 here. And then inside the 1, we have 15 minus 0. Because, as you can see, -15 or -5 times -3 is 15. 0 times 2 is 0. All right, so we're not going to waste our time with all the basic math here. You can check it on your own. I can tell you right now that the answer is -18. So d of y equals -18. You can check that. So 3 times -3 is 9, etc. But let's move on because this is getting long. All right, now we're going to do d sub z. Find the determinant for that one. And so this time we're going to swap out the third column. So the 321, this should look familiar. We've seen this several times now. The 852 is back. But now it's the third column that's the new one. So the third column is going to be the constant now, 5, 0, -1, because we're removing the z values to find to expand on the minors of that column and find d sub the determinant of d sub z, if you will. And so we go through the process again. Let me just do this a little bit more quickly here. So d sub z equals the following. You have 3 again. Remember, we're always using the first column. That's the 3. And so if we do that, we only have 5, 0, 2, -1, like so. And then plus, minus 2. And then so we have here 8 minus 5. And then we have 2, -1, like so. And then for the last one, of course, plus 1 again. And so then you have 8 minus 5, 5, 0, like so. And of course, we do all our cross multiplying. And we'll try to make this nice and clear for you. Let's see here. Oh, that's not very good. All right, here we go. So we got 3. And inside this, we have -5, because 5 times -1 is -5, minus 0 because 0 times 2 is 0. Remember, we do the cross multiplying there. And then we have -2, and then inside that we have -8, because 8 times -1 is -8, minus, and inside here we got -10. And then we got +1, and then inside that we have 0. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. Minus, and then -25, like so. Okay, so when you do all the basic math, this is a little bit trickier. This becomes -15 right here. Over here, this becomes, let's see here, -8 minus -10, so that becomes +2 essentially. And then 2 minus 2 becomes -4. And then over here, this is where it's kind of weird. You got the minus sign here. And so you have 0 minus -25. It actually becomes +25. I checked that several times. And then you multiply it by +1. And so you get +25 here. Okay. And so -5, 15, and this becomes -5, -4 becomes -19 plus +25, and we get +6. So determinant of d of z is 6. All right, we're in the home stretch now. So here's what you do. To find the determinants, you do d sub x over d. That gives you the x coordinate. dy over d gives you the y, and then d of z gives you that. And so we plug in all our values because we're almost there. Now for our d, each time, our d was, let's see here, -6. All right, now for x, our original value was 54, in case you can't remember. And then for d of y, our original value was -18, like so. And also for d of z, we just finished that one, we got 6. So the z coordinate is going to be, let's see here, make sure this is nice and clear. The z coordinate is going to be -1 because 6 over -6 is going to be -1. The y coordinate is going to be +3 because -18 divided by -6 is going to be that. And for our x is going to be -9 because 54 divided by -6 is 9. So that was a long experience. It takes a lot of time to do this by hand, but you can see how it works. Basically what you do is the same thing 3 times, and then you kind of add up the values at the end. It's a lot of work, but just to give you an idea of what we did was, and I want to walk through this to make sure it was clear. We took this system of equations right here that's on the screen that you can see right here at the top, and we put it inside a matrix. And so we had an x, y, and z column, and then we had the constant in the column the furthest to the right. And so to actually solve this, what you have to do is first find the determinant for when you take in the three variables and you remove the constant. You're always dealing with three columns because you have three variables. And so you have to expand on the minor. So you have to pick a column. We always pick the first column, the one the furthest to the left, and you expand on the minor. We talked about how to expand on the minors in a prior video. And so when you do that, you do some addition and you get your final value here, which is going to be your determinant. So for this one, we got -6. You then continue this process, but you do it for the x variable, the x, the y, and the z. And so in order to do that, you remove the values for the variable that you're trying to solve for. So when you want to do d of x, you remove the values from the x column and you put the constant there. And then you go through the same process of expanding the minors. And so we did that and we got 54 for d sub x, if you will. Then we repeated this process for d of y again. And then let's see here. D of y is right here. We repeated the process, except this time we swapped out the y values and put the constants here. And so we got the values for d sub y. And then we repeated this process for d sub z. And again, what do? We remove the z column and we put the constants there. And then once you go through all that, you can find the actual values for where the equation intersects at. And so in the top, you always have the determinant for the x, the y, or the z. And on the bottom, you have the determinant, the first one that you solve for, that's always the denominator. And so when you do this, you finally get the values that we have here at the bottom. A lot of work, but this is one way to deal with a system of equations. So I hope that this video was useful for you and that you were able to have some clue of what was going on. So thank you for watching. Take care.